Tim,
How are you?
good. Good.
It's different seeing you on this side of the screen.
Yeah. We're comfortable. Yeah.
So guys, one of the feedback that I got from a couple people in the public was they were having a really hard time hearing. So we need to make a more conscious effort into speaking into the mic.
Thank you. I don't even think.
No, it was, they said the whole meeting, they couldn't hear.
The one I was listening to it from home, it was hard to
It
hear.
was very, that's, I mean, here, Abby, I'll split one here for Jeff. I put that one for you.
Oh, I need 3 of them?
No, it's one.
No, I got 1. I got 2.
I just put it there.
Just pass around.
Sarah.
Oh, I know, we. All right, I brought my computer, but this one, the battery doesn't work, so I'm just putting it back away. There's nothing to plug it into.
One thing is I have the executive shirt on. My father too, so I could have managed anybody.
And I got 6. 3 work shirts, a Penfield shirt, and a nice shirt.
I have 72 Penfield shirts, 72 Michigan State shirts.
Do all the live streaming and go to 18 events a week, and you realize that you don't have enough Penfield shirts.
I just yelled at my brother because I said there was a baseball apparel, and I'm like, you should have told me I would have bought like a sweatshirt. Like, I don't have anything baseball.
Hold on there. See if you can add on to it.
Yeah, I want to add. I just want to. Actually, I'd rather have like a sweatshirt. I think this would be. Or a long sleeve tee. Is there a long sleeve tee on there? You know? Hear that? That's how loud it is. I'm just telling you. You should be good. Okay. So you're my witness. Yes. Yep.
How's your day, Sarah?
Couple minutes here. We'll let our viewers join in. If I remind everybody to silence your phones. I don't need that, Jerry. That's way too much power for me. I do not need a gavel. Trust me.
All right.
Fred, you being out there like that on the end, you may not be heard very well. And that was why I just said it on the end.
Sarah.
Okay.
So you may have to.
I'll let him borrow. Yeah. You raise me up. That's all right.
Welcome, everyone. Penfield School Board meeting, Monday, April 19th, 2021, 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If everyone would like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Roll call, please, Miss Sarah.
Dawn Horton. Here. Abby Green.
Here.
Sarah Jones here. Craig Corpola.
Here.
Dana Wells Jenny. Here. Jeff Wolfersberger.
Here.
Tim Wood.
Here.
Thank you, ma'am. 1.04, I'd like to remind everyone in the NERBS of collaboration. 1.05, addenda. Anyone have anything to wish to add to tonight's meeting?
I don't know if I missed it. Last week, we were going to talk about the evaluation concerns, the teacher evaluation concerns. Mr. Simmons said we need another week. We have that already.
Actually,
Or is it not issue now?
yes, non-issue.
I'm
Okay, we had it.
concerned about it. Maybe
Yeah.
comments?
Yeah, you know what, then yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
And go ahead and add it, and I can share out.
Okay, perfect.
We'll leave that.
What would you like to do, sir?
Have Kevin update us on the, a couple weeks ago, we received an email from one of the teachers. She was concerned about this year's evaluations, just due to the COVID. So it sounds like there's been a correction to it, so Mr. Simmons can update us.
You would like to add a discussion on the teacher evaluation process?
And it would be, what the outcome was, once we addressed it with the teachers union. So I can kind of share what that was.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Vote to add that to tonight's discussion?
Okay. Abby?
Yes.
Sarah, yes. Craig? Dana?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Dawn?
5.07 will be teacher evaluation. 2.01, comments from the public. We have no public. It's a Ron White joke, sorry. Consent agenda, 3.01, committee of the whole board minutes, 3/8/21, 3.02, regular board minutes, 3/15/21, 3.03, approve check registers, 3.04, approve electronic funds transfer, 3.05, approve policy updates.
Make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Ed.
Or second.
Presented by Abby, seconded by Dana.
Okay, vote.
Please.
Sarah? Yes. Craig?
Nay.
Dana?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Dawn? Abby?
Yes.
Motion passes. Consent agenda passes as supplied. Oh, come on. Computer just froze. 4.01, items removed from the consent agenda would be
Any?
procedure. Moving on to 5.01, transportation LOA.
Yes, so, since this LOA that we had a conversation about last week, they actually came in on Tuesday. So that Monday, I mentioned that there was no LOA, it came in on Tuesday. We're gonna ask the board for an action to accept this LOA because it still adds flexibility to trying to at least get, if not Dean Transportation, there's another company called METS, so we can at least cover some athletic events, and hopefully, there's some things we can do over the next 9 days to address the differences with consolidating routes so that we can come back to the last weeks of school without having all this uncertainty that we're having now. So, yeah, I'm asking the board to approve this LOA.
Thank you, Kevin. Kind of discussed this last week and we kind of put it on hold and then you showed up Tuesday morning and it was all signed. So sounds like our transportation department is in agreement with that.
I make a motion that we accept the transportation LOA as presented.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Sarah.
Okay. Greg Corpola.
Aye.
Dana Wells Jenny.
Yes.
Jeff Wolfersberger.
Aye.
Tim Wood.
Yes.
Dawn Fortin.
Yes.
Abby Green.
Yes.
And Sarah Jones, yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Transportation LOA passed as presented. 5.02, our ECOL by our awesome Jerry Mueller. Come bearing gifts.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hi, Jerry.
Or the back of you. Just wanted to say that I believe this is number 6 of these this year. So they're a monthly event. It is posted on our website, as it always is. And it is also, I believe, in your board docs that you have. So you can see it 2 or 3 different ways. The tricky part we're getting now is that attendance, if we went virtual and it was on Wednesday, which is the beginning of the week for this, it would be easy, but it's never on Wednesday. So as you can look, these numbers, especially that first week, represents a double count for some classes. So if you're one that adds the numbers together, that's why. You'll see that number is much larger than the other 3 weeks. We're still well above the state expectation of 75%. We are in the 90s almost every time. As a matter of fact, I don't remember us being below 90% throughout all of the pandemic that we've been dealing with. So this is exciting to see. Next month will be a little bit different because 2 of the weeks were only 2 days long, but the numbers are looking good for that. So, a little teaser for next month when you see this, it'll be even more, it'll be different again. So, but these numbers are good. Staff is staying on top of this. Middle school and high school are all measured as virtual 100%. In the 3 K-5 or 3 elementary buildings are measured with 2 different numbers. So in person, and we give a daily average percent, and then the students that are virtual, we give you actual percentages for their performance. Any questions on this or comments?
Jerry, what was our pre-COVID average daily attendance?
Pre-COVID average daily attendance. So I'm going to go back in time a little bit. When we report to the state, we do anywhere from 93 to 95%, I believe, and I'm really shooting from the hip, but we have that. If you want to see it, it's our school our annual reports reflect that. So I'd have to just pull it up and take a peek.
So,
but we're real consistent with these numbers.
Yeah, looks like it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question. So is this just the interaction or they're actually attending their classes?
Good question. So two-way interaction means that the teacher says, I need this from you. This is one way to do it. I need this from you. Or the teacher's reaching out and saying, I noticed you didn't do this well. Do you need help? And the students responded. So it could be during the course of a classroom meet, or it could be during the course of a remediation office hours type setting, but it's two ways. So the teacher can't say, all right, everyone, I want you to do chapter 2. That's one way. So it has to be an actual dialogue.
So this isn't like actual who's attending the classes, whether they're virtual or in person?
I think they almost have to be there. I'm gonna ask Trevor for a second, but I think they almost have to be there to do the two-way dialogue. But I believe they can be asynchronous. They don't have to be there at the same time, the teacher and the student.
Correct. It can be exactly what Jerry just said, but you can also use attendance as a recorded two-way interaction as well. So you have a combination of a few different things that count. So typically, I think the in-person, the attendance, either a virtual setting or in person is what you're seeing there. But we also have the interactions that Jerry was talking about.
It's been an interesting year with this because the definition from the state has been modified more than once. Yeah. I think I said that well.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Other questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Awesome. All right, 5.03, athletic transportation amendment. Kevin, you want to touch base on this, on why we're
I
bringing
was
this up?
impressed that you found it.
Yes.
It was a long time ago.
Actually we have that situation we're talking about with athletic events, and that in 2015, there was a committee that was put together and said there are certain things that need to go in play in order for parents to be able to pick up their kids from after an event. I talked with, Dr. Attorney Davis with True Law today, and had him send back an email with the wording that if we temporarily suspend this policy, it would allow for parents, if we get a situation where we don't have transportation, the parents can say, yeah, my kid's gonna be able to get there, so please don't cancel the event. Because without the transportation, a lot of times we have to cancel the event. So this allows for, yes, if a parent, we're not, this is why I want to make sure to bring this to your attention. We're not setting up transportation for the kids if we don't have transportation. So if an older student says, I'll take my buddy with me, if there's an accident, the school is not going to be liable for that situation because we're temporarily suspending the policy. However, if we do have a bus that can take the student, then we will still follow those same guidelines. So this is just saying that it allows our parents and our coaches the opportunity to still hold the event, even if we can't find transportation for getting the kids there.
So correct me if I'm wrong, the basics of this was to halt the students that could drive from driving to athletic events. So they were safer on a bus. Due to everything that's going on in the world today, we can't guarantee transportation. So like Kevin mentioned, instead of now, as this policy reads, if we're not able to provide transportation, then we have to cancel the event. So the recommended from Troon and Kevin would be to suspend it until the end of the year. That way, if transportation is not able to be found for that particular event, parents and coaches and all that could do their own source of transportation.
I have a question, and I completely agree that what we're looking to do is right. My question is why we're touching this policy, is this the time that we review the policy? Because I've always felt this policy was just a little bit, it's not like how we follow every other policy at the school. Like I fill out paperwork at the beginning of every school year that has 6 people that if there's an emergency, my brother, my sister, my mom, my dad, any could come and sign up my child. And like, for example, I'm just gonna use today as an example. Both my kids had a sporting event. I can't be at both, and they, ironically, some sports start during the workday, so that would have meant maybe a grandparent would have gone. Now, if they would have rode the bus, then maybe my child would have been the only person on the bus on the way home. Is there a way that we can maybe amend this policy that she could ride home with a grandparent if we put in place? I don't understand why, as parents, we can't say like, oh, then you could ride home, like, you know, like you could ride home with your grandparent, you could ride home with your uncle. If we pre-fill it out at the beginning of the school year or at the beginning of the season, I just feel like that policy is super stringent, especially since there are children. Like, I'm not saying like, hey, Tim, can you take home Hunter from like cross country? I'm saying like a parent or aunt and uncle and pre-set it up. But then either if it makes, you know, the athletic department more comfortable, it's at the beginning of the school year and they're on a set list, or if it's at the beginning of the season. I don't know what is the right way, and I think that's why I'm trying to have this conversation. I just feel like just a parent is such a stringent thing, especially like in the community and the world that we're living in right now. People don't always live with just their parent, and it's not always legal that they don't live with their parent. Sometimes like.
And so today is just a temporary suspension.
No, I get that.
But we can come back in committee as a whole, and we can go ahead and take this whole policy and reword and rework on it. That's like the committee.
Well, and I think that, so Craig, you were here too, but as I recall, the reason this was put together partly was an accident. There are some children that were hurt that they're driving themselves back and forth to events. In an accident, you know, and also there was some concern about how did the people at the event, the coaches and such, know if the person taking the kid was legit.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And yeah, so I think you're bringing up a lot of really good, and I think that at the time, that was a committee of parents and community members and athletic boosters that kind of came up with that recommendation. The board didn't come up with it independently.
Right.
And I think that you could make some nice changes to make this a little easier to manage.
I just think that
Yeah.
right now, I've been at events, there's been one kid on a bus on the way home, and it's because their grandma came to watch, and they couldn't ride home with their grandma, and every
Right.
other child's been signed out.
Yeah.
And I just feel like if we can put that maybe on a policy change, on a committee
I
of the
think
whole
it'd be
meeting, that, I think that's something we should definitely address, because I think it's
time to look at it again.
definitely time to readdress this. And that's why I was asking if this was
Yeah.
time. I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah. I had a question about suspending it also. So if you completely suspend it, is there another policy that falls back on what students are allowed to do, or would that also allow students to drive back and forth?
It allows students to drive.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make that clear, that we're really like suspending the whole thing, all bets are off.
Yeah, which means that the district would not, for any reason that would occur after school's out, that would then become a parent's responsibility or
Yeah.
parents.
And I'm not saying that's good or bad, I just was clarifying.
The only question that I would have is, so it's suspended. Do we have a date? Like, is it the end of the school year, after football, like?
Do we readdress it?
Would you like to put that in your motion, ma'am?
Well, and so the communication, so this is saying, if we do have transportation, then are they required to follow this policy, or is it just a free-for-all? You can ride or you don't have to, you know, because I can see a little confusion for the coach.
I can speak for tennis, like for example, as of Saturday, we didn't think we were gonna have a bus for today, and then we got a text late yesterday, hey, we have a bus now. Now, even though you guys all made these arrangements, now you guys are required to ride the bus because we have a bus. So that was Mr. Corcoran's, that was.
A responsibility he had,
So
yeah.
he communicated to the entire team via his mode of communication. Now what you're gonna, and so now, because we're gonna provide a bus, now you're gonna have to be signed out. And, because Olivia said, but my papa was gonna take me, so can my papa bring me home? No, now it goes back to the old rules, and no, you have to ride the bus home.
It'd be a lot clearer to just have the same rule, not back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah. So,
Well, I think maybe in the motion, we could suspend this if we don't have transportation.
Yeah.
If we have transportation, this stands, I would assume.
So I think what I hear Dana saying is that that's gonna change parents' arrangements at the last minute.
Yeah.
And that's a hardship on the families to have that going back and forth and back and
We
forth.
should be able to do 24-hour notice. I mean, I would think that.
we found out less than 24 hours.
And meaning if we make the motion that we say this within 24 hours, that way a parent is not caught in that situation of, I just made plans, wait for parent till they have a day off work to do that. And then
Well-
go,
Most parents, yeah, they're probably making further in advance than that,
yes.
than 24 hours.
So you think it should be more than 24 hours?
I don't know.
I mean, like, we already know that, or do we know that today got rescheduled for Friday, and we were told, and now, guys, we aren't gonna have a bus. Now we have to we aren't gonna have a bus for Friday. So we already know that. So now we're back on the hook which is fine.
Right.
And that's as of right now. We didn't have a bus for tomorrow, and we just got a message at 1 o'clock this
So
afternoon.
it's 48
I'm sorry.
hours. It's at least 2 days notice. I mean, we know unless we got a cancellation, but then that's a different situation. If you come.
I just wanna make sure that we're covering, and we're just being, I just don't want, like, I feel like sometimes if there's gray area,
I think it's gonna be confusing, and you're gonna have a kid driving home when there was a bus because they got confused. And so I
You know,
just,
and even if we did put an absolute timeline on it, if we said 24 hours, 48 hours, you know, with quarantines and everything else, you did make it cancel.
So,
I think.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So possibly an amendment to this policy would not be active unless transportation is provided. So that way you are eliminating the policy
Yes.
and less transportation is provided.
Yes. Then it just asks the question of how much time in advance do we let parents know? Because, yeah, it could be a major headache, not just for parents, but even for coaches.
How, if the amendment was just, we're gonna suspend this policy until the end of the year, and we'll let you know if transportation is available, but the policy will still be suspended, what would that look like?
I think it just becomes that situation of a kid saying, okay, but my buddy drove down, I'm gonna ride back with my buddy.
Well, yeah,
You tell them that transportation was available, so now you have to go by, the policy is signing out to go back. I think it.
Or leaving the school with, say, a varsity team, and we're providing a bus and we have 2 kids on the bus
Yes.
because everyone else wanted to drive.
Yes.
so you have to do either all or nothing.
Yeah.
I think you have to do all or nothing.
I think all or nothing would help, because then it's not a guessing game, which is kind of what we're going through right now.
And I think too, I mean, the attorney recommended that we do background checks and 2 adults per vehicle, and just logistically, I don't know if that can happen.
Yeah, those are coaches. If we were.
If that was an employee providing transportation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, we were on Saturday, we didn't have a bus. So there were a couple kids that had to ride with other parents because they had no way to get there.
We're having more situations of not having transportation than we are with having transportation. So,
So if we just completely suspend it, then are you guys saying you would prefer that or not prefer that? I wasn't clear. You would not prefer that.
I think that's when we do able to provide transportation. So you got 15 varsity kids walking out the back door and 13 of them say, well, I'm just going to drive. I don't want to ride the bus. So we're now providing a bus. And
So I got Tyler and Coach Moran on the bus.
the one kid on the team without a driver's license. So,
Yeah.
The coach's problem,
Yeah.
you know?
And it feels to you guys like the communication is working well enough, so as parents have asked
if they go on the bus, who can sign them out is the policy, what guns are we sticking to?
Right, I think that we're saying the same thing. I
Okay.
just, if the bus becomes available the next morning, is our motion gonna say this policy goes back into effect? Or is this policy still suspended?
And I'm saying it's still suspended.
I think that would work then.
Okay.
I would be fine with that.
Say 24-hour notice.
Yeah.
You get a 24-hour notice.
Yeah,
And not surprised the next morning, which is 8 hours or 6 hours.
Yeah.
Before we even go, oh, by the way, we have a bus.
I don't think most parents mind, because like, for example, for me, if I can work for another 45 minutes or an hour, and if I don't have to like rush out the door and check, blah, 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 like, okay, I'm good, but how do you feel?
I don't want to make it an inconvenience for everybody, but we're trying to please 99.9% of parents and athletes. I think the big picture here is we're trying to make sure that
Right.
we don't have to cancel events because.
yeah, for sure.
So,
sure.
do you think, with talking with Troon, do you think an amendment saying that this policy is null and void unless Penfield Community Schools Penfield School District does provide transportation and will notify within 24 hours?
Yes.
Okay,
Because
like that.
what Attorney Davis was saying is clearly the district is not responsible for transportation to all athletic events.
And I understand. I mean, we got parents and athletes that are trying to look at the board legal side of it and then the parent and athlete side of it. So did you get that? My motion is whatever I just said. So I would like to make an motion
Yeah.
to amend this policy.
Suspend this policy.
Temporary suspend, right?
Mhm.
Because if you temporary suspend, then you can add after that.
Yeah.
We're going to amend this policy.
You're gonna amend the motion.
The amendment is going to read, this policy is null and void unless Penfield School District is able to provide transportation, and transportation notice will be made within 24 hours.
So I think that you said the right thing, but I do think it needs to be a suspension, because if you're gonna amend the policy, it's supposed to that first read,
Yep.
second read whole thing.
Yep. So we just need to suspend it, yeah.
And that's why you're here.
Yeah.
Keep me in line.
Just replace the word amend with suspend, and I think we're okay.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah.
Suspend to.
So we're still gonna follow the procedures, even if it's not a policy, when we can.
We're gonna
with the
suspend
buses,
it if there's
but we're
not a bus
suspending it
available.
So it allows the flexibility to do other things if we need to.
Sound good?
So suspend, not amend.
I got it.
Can you please change my amend word to suspend?
For the remainder of the school year?
Till June 21st. We got June 30th.
Gets through the end of
June 30th.
Gets you through districts.
We got districts and
Regional,
regionals
states.
and
states and everything. Yep.
We better be able to provide a bus. for
through
the
June
state.
30th, 2021.
Yes.
Can I get a second?
Second it.
Thank you, Craig. Sarah, whenever you're ready for a vote.
I'll start with Dana,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Abby,
Yes.
Sarah, yes. Craig,
Aye.
Motion passes. Five point oh four, superintendent informal update. Kevin, you got a little.
Yes, I do, and I did bring copies, hope everybody got your computer that you can see, if not,
I read it.
read through.
I always have it memorized.
Well, and again, this informal update, as we've done before, I actually have it to where I'm gonna share out the pages with the information. But remember that what I'm sharing, that's,
Informal.
informal, that if there's questions, they will go to the board president, who would bring that to my attention to be brought up at the formal. So, I'm going to share, that was the 3 months is the informal update. Superintendent provides written update to the board. Board president shares with the superintendent any specific concerns / questions from the board. So this is not a dialogue session as much as just sharing out some information. It is in bullet form, so I will have, PowerPoint.
Can I just clarify
Yes,
that, so if we have questions about the content, do you want us to ask that or not?
no.
Okay.
Actually, actually share it with board president,
Okay,
and then he will bring that back so I can come back with formal answers.
thank you.
You're welcome. So there were 4 goals, and noted that the first goal was an April presentation at the committee of the whole meeting related to feedback from the Battle Creek school districts. The second goal was also the A part, which was in April, create a after school schedule for walking at the middle school in the hallway around the square. And then goal 3, which is also the first part in March, was a presentation, committee of the whole meeting regarding the rough draft of a backup plan for our facilities. And then goal number 4 was the March 2021 teacher talks. So I just want to touch on those real quick and give a little more information. The goal 1, the virtual programming. So Battle Creek Public, they decided they're going internal. Harper Creek is going internal. And Lakeview, we're still having that consideration and conversation. This is coming back in the fall and making sure there's a virtual option for the students and their parents who didn't want to go with their kids coming back into school. The other option is Penfield Schools. We have an option to where it's a work in progress. We use the district subs and the teachers, and we use the E2020. So to kind of give you a big picture of what that would look like, we're in discussion of, we have district subs that we've hired already. Those district subs would be able to help with students who need to go in and out of the E2020 program for math and science and English and social studies. Those virtual students wouldn't have specials, but at the high school level, we may have to look at some virtual, what's it called, K-12 virtual, to where we actually pay for them to get that class, K-12 virtual, Spanish, consumer math, which is like a difference for personnel finance, to get those classes because they will need those at high school level. The second option is team up with Lakeview School District to support our virtual learning needs. And then the last one is pay for a K-12 virtual learning program. I appreciate the email that Addie sent that had some questions about, hey, this is going to be quite costly. We are not trying to create a program like Gold Lake has, or like Barron Springs has, or, to where they have an alternative, they have an actual virtual program in their district. That's not what we're trying to create. What we're trying to create is a temporary opportunity because we're having all the kids return in the fall, and all the teachers we have now are coming back to the classroom. So we're looking for that type of start to the fall of 2021. So we're not looking to where we're trying to take teachers we have now and hire them to go and do virtual learning. We're going to use E2020, and we're going to use district subs, and we're going to have teachers to support them. So that's still in the works. We're having a conversation with Mr. Faber, Mr. Hutchins, the high school administrators. Now we're going to start pulling in the actual guidance counselors because we got to make sure that they're actually getting that piece in. Then we're going to start working with the middle school and then with the K-5. So right now it is a work. So in the next 3 months, there's another update, and I should be able to actually roll out exactly what it is we want to take to the parents in June before we get to, not June, the 1st of July, before we actually get into August. So we'll start asking questions to parents. So that's the goal 1. Goal 2 was to create a hallway walking schedule. I got to share it's not possible right now with the numbers that are up, and this would be a great day that we would have had neighbors, senior citizens, the whole walking piece to go back in the place where they're walking at the middle school and they were able to walk that square. We would also be working with the custodial staff to where they would be able to clean behind them because of course they need to go to the bathroom if they're there and instead of saying you gotta go somewhere else. But that schedule right now is on hold right now. The goal number 3, the facilities plan B. I said C attached, and it was actually attached in the actual board docs. It shows the summer schedule, and it shows the actual cost of some of the activities that we're looking at paying for. An example is the roof of the administration's building. That part is some $15,000. So Julie and I had this conversation. There's certain things with facilities that we're trying to fix before we even have an opportunity. Even if a bond goes through, this still needs to be done. So we're working on that. The press box at the field had a huge leak in it. It was causing the floor on the second floor to just rot out. So we actually worked a plan to go in and have work done with new plywood and a roof also. Again, it's a temporary fix, but it's not just letting it just go where it's dangerous. And then goal number 4, teacher talks. We actually scheduled those in March, and I had teacher talks with all the groups, had a very exciting teacher talk with the transportation department. That one was exciting. So the last is the questions. The formal update is June 2021, and that will be as more of the details from the 4 goals. There were, if you remember the benchmarks, went like A, B, and C. These were all A because they were written to say up to the first 3 months, I'm going to do these things. B is going to be up to the next 3 months. And then C was incorporating all of those, which is more like the opening of the school district. We come back in August for the big celebration. Open barbecue or something, balloons. That is the update, and I would ask that for clarity on any of these, based on those goals, that you share those with President Jeff, and he and I, we meet each week, and then there will be some information I'll be sharing back in writing, so you don't have to wait until May to actually get some the answers to questions.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons, and all your hard work, and thank you for the update.
Thank you.
5.05, van quote. Can touch on this real quick. We've had 2.5 months of deliberation and finally got waiting on the RFP. We got the RFP. The RFP is attached. Correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like the van quote is the second part of that attachment.
Let's see.
We have the first one on there is for 75.2, and then we have a Ford Transit
The 75.
on there at 36.2.
Yes.
So that's, the van is the 75.2?
The 75-2 are the 2 vans. Those are the 2 10-passenger vans to transport students. And the second one for the 36-2 is for the cargo van to be used with maintenance.
Thank you. They both just got put in an attachment as the van, under the van quote. Did you have anything to add?
The only thing I have to add is, last week, I think Jim, you had asked me some questions about insurance. And I did provide that, I think Dan attached it in there, but I'm just gonna go over that. I did get some information on that. So, if we have an employee drive, and an employee has to be a paid employee, so not like a volunteer employee, but a paid employee, then if something was to happen, their claim, say they were in an accident and they had an injury, their claim, they could go under workers' comp with the district's thing, or the district's auto policy would be covering the vans. Their liability, I think you'd ask me too about liability, you have $1 million liability, and then we also have an umbrella coverage for excess over that.
Okay, and that would be extended to parents, volunteers, even outside of employees?
No, so that's just employees, and the medical's unlimited. So that's,
Is that, are coaches considered, okay.
Yes.
they have to be paid by the district. If they're paid by the district, they're considered an employee. Students then, if you talked about the part about students on the vans is the same as a student on a school bus. There isn't any change, but how that works is parents' auto is always the first one billed. So even on our school buses, if they're in an accident, they have to go to the parents' auto policy. And then the parents may not have an auto policy, may not cover, there's a lot of different circumstances. At that point, they can come to the district for the bail that was owed. And then the district's insurance would pick up at that point.
Okay. And was there discussion about the parent or volunteer driving?
Yeah, we are not looking at volunteers throughout the event, just the coaches. But what we would have is, as we talked about, it needs to be a second adult. Okay, I got my back to you, Craig. A second adult, that the coach is driving, but there's a second adult that's also there.
All right, so our policy would be that parents, volunteers can't drive.
Not listed as employees of the district. And employees of the district could be teachers, paras, the middle supervisor. Yeah.
Anybody that's paid by the district.
Okay.
So,
Which may double as a parent.
Yes, this is true, yes.
so what if my question is, if we are using these, if we were gonna use these ever for a team and there's not two coaches, then who's the second driver?
Well, then we get into a situation in which, in order for someone to drive, we need them to be an employee. And if we need them to be an employee, they need to do background checks, they need to go through all those steps. And then we have a parent that's probably, we could actually pay for them to actually drive instead of being a volunteer. We need them to become an employee, because if they're not, there's a whole new world of.
Yeah.
That was my concern.
So we will-
I thought we were looking at parents,
Yes.
volunteers driving.
So my other question is, are either of these vans handicap accessible?
They're not,
That they're not.
they're not.
And what kind of, like, black cloud does that bring over our head by not providing some type of handicap accessibility if,
We have the full-size buses for that.
I'm saying, let's say the athlete is handicapped, needs handicap accessible. We have those buses,
okay,
but if we run into that same thing with a student, then we would have to work that out with transportation so that we can at least get a bus or somehow be able to transport the student. We wouldn't say just because you're handicapped, we're not gonna take care of you.
no, I get it, no, I'm just trying to go down all these lines. And then also, like, what is just because, we've had so many different questions on these, and we've gone back and forth between 15 and 10, and we found out that we couldn't do the 15, we talked about 10. So is there a reason that we haven't even considered maybe leasing these for like a year and seeing if that would be a better option for us?
We have some of that.
Because I just wonder if it would makes more sense for us to lease these for a year to see if it's something that we actually use instead of just like spending money.
Yeah, it was, my thought was leasing, and Jenny could just chime in if she wants, but the leasing is just like the air purifiers that we're talking about. So you're going to buy them and then you're going to utilize them until they wear out. Or you're going to go and lease and then you're going to say, oh man, we could use that money and just went ahead and just purchase.
So just a quick point that I think we're kind of overlooking here. These buses, we just discussed the special needs routes to Marshall, Central, and Doris Clausen. So now instead of our full-size buses being used for that, we can use these. So instead of us going to buy another $80,000 bus to put in our transportation department so we have more buses, we're adding two for the same price. And we're able to use these during the day too.
No, but he plans on still buying another bus.
That's to replace old
replacer.
buses, but our shortage.
Yeah, that was already put in the budget.
Okay.
Which was two vans and one bus. And then that was already in the 2021 budget. When we come back to the 21-22 budget, we want to get back to the two bus purchases again.
Yeah, we do 2 a year just to
Yeah.
replace.
So
Yeah.
the biggest thing, I'll be honest, I asked Kevin this week, what is your recommendation? Now that we know what we can use these for and what we can't, this is gonna take two full-size buses off of singular routes and bring them back to our district, and we're gonna have more buses.
Well,
Yeah.
for the time being,
So-
until, because this LOA for transportation is just through the end of the school year,
Our daily routes,
through the end of the school year.
no. Forget about athletics.
No,
Our
I'm
daily
talking about
routes.
The three people, those three, Doris Clausen, those runs, that LOA is through the end of the school year.
No, I think that what he's saying is the vans could be used by district employees next year to transport those small groups of kids to those places also.
So those three
Possibly.
kids, even though
Possibly.
they, none of them need any type of handicap accessible.
Well, now, the Doris Clausen, I believe Trevor can help me with this one. I think Doris Clausen actually has a bus that has to be.
There is one.
Yeah, there's one. And
So
I think the
just sure.
idea is there's a lot of different ways it could be used that
Yeah,
we're using
yeah.
buses for right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they are bound by our bid specifications, right? I mean, there's more specifications to it than just this.
Yes, there was an RFP, we put an RFP out.
So do we have a motion to continue?
I wondered, are we making a motion at committee of the whole, we discussed whether we're gonna make a motion for all three of them at once or
They're separate.
Two separate.
Yeah. I make a motion that we accept the bid for the two vans for 70.
I section that.
5,200.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Okay, I will take a roll call then.
Thanks.
Jeff?
Yes, ma'am.
Tim?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Abby?
Yes.
Sarah, yes. Craig? Dana?
No.
Motion passes. Please get those babies coming. Okay, so the attachment for the van, the cargo van as we're referring it to, is actually onto the van quote. So the request is 36,200 for a district cargo van to replace the now big box van that's outdated, oversized, so on and so forth. So we discussed this last week. Is there any other?
Quick question, and this has a request for bid two with specifications in it?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're not worried about any of that handwritten that they wrote in?
That's just basically just how, we're not gonna get it, I mean, they're looking like at October, so.
Okay.
And I haven't been in direct contact with this person since we received the bid, just because I didn't know where we were going with it, so I'll get in contact with them and see if those dates have changed or how that's looking.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that current cargo truck that we use, is that refrigerated? Because you said something about it transporting food.
It is not,
Okay.
it's just a box truck.
Does this include the, labeling of Penfield schools and all of that?
I know, it won't, we will have to take it somewhere and have the labeling. These are though green, all three of them, the two that were just voted on and this one is, Penfield green or whatever you'd like, but the green that is, yeah. And, but as far as the labeling and stuff like that, we'll have to take it somewhere and get that.
We'll make sure we get the right Panther on
Which one's that?
it.
That's way too
Which one's that?
Yes.
All right. Motion on the cargo van purchase.
Make that motion.
I'd second it.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, Tim?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yeah.
Abby?
Yes.
Sarah's a yes. Craig?
Aye.
Dana?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
All right.
Motion passes. Purchase away, ma'am. Thank you. Moving on to our addenda item 5.07, teacher evaluation. Kevin, would you explain the email briefly
Yes.
and what we plan on doing for our teacher evaluation this year?
Yeah, so we actually had a conversation with, actually a meeting with the union representation, and we met even before the email came out. But it just so happens that Trevor and Jerry are here, and they can actually
teacher gives that test in the spring or the fall, depending on what year we go back to, there is no other test. It's hard to measure growth. It's not impossible. There is a way to do that from the testing previous, but when we only test science and social studies, 5th grade, 8th grade, and 11th grade, or maybe in 9th grade, depending on the test, it's hard to measure growth and hang your hat on a teacher's performance. So we come to this year, and we're looking at the NWA data that students took in the fall. It was really high in some grade levels and really low in some grade levels. So the principals and I started talking in October. What does this mean? What does it look like? And in the meantime, I go to training from a group called Renaissance, which is, they look at national data. And they have found, and they quoted us, that first grade and kindergarten have outstanding fall test scores when they take it at home.
Because they're, yeah.
So, mine is to report the data, not the conclusion. But
Yeah.
what happens is, because of that, when we took tests in person in the winter, we had a significant drop in scores in some grade levels. So if we have to, by law, not a Penfield thing, 40% of our evaluation, at least as of today, must be on student growth in our domain 5 that we call it. If that domain 5 is 40% of a drop, then we're doing a disservice to the teachers that are working their tails off.
For sure.
100%.
So that's where this idea of, let's make everyone effective, but let's do goal setting for next year when we're back in person, or to whatever extent that we are allowed to be. Let's do goal setting and hit that ground running with our best available knowledge without beating up teachers that we know are working hard. So let's say we had a teacher that wasn't working hard, that when the principals went into their virtual classroom, they saw some things that were troubling going on. That's the other 4 domains. That's the characteristics we could look at in there. And that's another discussion. If that was a concern, then we're talking about an individual development plan of action and that type of thing. But we're still not beating up the teacher because it possibly could be they're way out of their element teaching virtually. So our intent by saying everyone effective was to say, we're taking care of you. Those that are highly effective, we predicted that there would be some concern with it. Nobody's been highly effective in 2 years.
And that's where the email came from.
Yes, and I respect the email. I did exactly what she was saying. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was a little shocked at some of the things that were in there, but what she stated was exactly what the principal said to me also. Hey, this is going to be a concern here and here. And I said, let's play a game. Pull up 5 teachers' data that were highly effective last year based on just that one test. So it might not be the best experiment, but we did, and we pulled up the building data as a whole and averaged it out to see if that would help. We only have fall to winter data. They're the same people that do our third grade reading law, that send letters home to parents and we don't know who they send it to. We have no control over what CEPI puts up. We did not know they were going to put that on last year. I'm thankful we did, but no.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get it. But I will tell you, we will have, I'm gonna make a prediction, it's an opinion right now. But the data is indicating we will have many more that will be minimally effective or less versus the 3 or 4 that would, or 3 or 4 per building that would be highly effective, and even more with the bigger buildings.
Then how are we legally able to jump those guys up to effective?
Well, because we're saying our teacher evaluation system at Penfield is based on Danielson's work, and here's our standard of student growth. And then we can go from there. Because while we have to pick one of the methods or the rubrics, if you will, we still set the standard. What we can't change is that 40% for student data.
And that's on all of them? On the 4 different?
Yeah.
We're bound by the way we're evaluating.
We're bound by our rubrics and that growth.
On the other models.
Right, we couldn't change those now. Now, could we do it for next year? We could, but the situation would remain the same.
And that same thought came up.
It did, sir.
You know how it was labeled, it shows,
Yeah.
and it shows all effective? The intent is when they see all effective for our district, they'll go, oh, they did the same thing that was from before because it was a carry through from the year before. Because if you see all effective across there again.
When you're looking at all the teachers together, but when you look up at an individual and it shows that you've dropped, like that's.
Yeah, it is.
Without a note, that looks bad.
So one of the things that I would like to do, and it's not gonna change the, my opinion on how we do this, is take a look at it. And if a teacher at, let's say I sit down with Sarah Newbecker and we're at Dunlap, and she's got probably 20 teachers she's evaluating, we take a look at those 20 and yeah, the numbers work out. This is a very highly effective teacher. We have a conversation. But don't we also have to then say this teacher would be minimally effective, and we have to mark it that way too. And I'm going to make another Jerry statement, not a valid statement. Are they really minimally effective? Because they're teaching virtually, they're teaching in person, they're teaching virtually, and they're busting their tail to do it. They're running good meets, and look at their percentage. It might be attending, or mom and dad took the test in the fall. It could be that situation. So this was a tough one, to be honest with you.
So how will this be different next year then?
Because then we'll actually be able to use the actual percentages based on the fact that we would be saying, hey, now we have all the kids back, even though there may be some
Although
kids.
we may not.
But we'll have the majority.
Yeah.
We'll have the majority.
Well, the thing that will change, I believe, is that we're not going to keep skipping back and forth as much.
I mean, look at our current situation though.
Yeah.
So that's what concerns me, like.
We're higher now than we were in the fall.
How are we going to prepare for next year so we can give our teachers the evaluations that they deserve?
Well, this is the evaluation they deserve. I mean,
Okay.
Otherwise, let's just do the real one, and boy, you think that hits the public.
I mean, I don't think our teachers are gonna be happy to go into next year knowing, you know what, I'm gonna be effective no matter what.
Right.
Okay,
The plan right now is to return. Sorry to interrupt.
So we can always come back to this discussion, I believe, at a committee as a whole. But the answer to the email question was that we met with the teachers before the email actually came out. But the teacher didn't have that conversation with the union representation because they were told the same thing that we'd already covered.
Yeah, I did meet with the one union president, Teresa White, because she helped build this thing.
Yeah.
Her and Tom Faber and myself are one of the few left that were around that built this thing. And I wanted her opinion because it meant a lot to me. So we went from there.
We'll be coming back to that.
Absolutely.
Well, I just like to say, is there room in there for if there is a teacher that is truly highly effective to petition and say, hey, evaluate?
Right now, we're operating on what the data's telling us.
And you've already seen that, it's not the 40%.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I analyzed them. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I pulled it up just before it crashed at the site, so. But we are looking at spring data again. The evaluations are done by May 15th, so we won't have data back. That's the catch-22 with this.
So if I understand, the short story is, the reason you made that decision to make everybody effective is because if you hadn't, we would have been unfairly marking them as ineffective because of the 40% of student data based on the way testing happened this year.
And there was nobody who would have been highly effective anyway.
Well, at the data that we had in the fall.
Yeah, okay.
Well, in the winter.
The
Fall data was
Fall, the
excellent.
winter, yeah.
Fall data
Yeah.
was really cool. We had kindergartners
Thank you,
in
that's
at ninth
helpful.
grade level.
Jerry, I thank you for being on the spot. Adding this onto the meeting tonight, you just so happen to be here. I think you answered a bunch of questions. I would ask anyone to address any questions to Kevin in regards to this, and if we need to bring it back to a meeting, committee of the whole or a board meeting, we can do so and invite Jerry back. Moving on, 6.01, comments from the public. We have no public.
He said, I still got nothing.
7.01, superintendent comments.
Yes, I have, three that I'd like to make tonight. The first one is, concern that actually parents have brought up. Next month, as the committee of the whole, I'm gonna bring a recommendation for policy. Based on the fact that when we have a situation like we're in now, that the district was, working to get everyone the opportunity to get vaccinated. There are districts that are saying that we're not paying people if they did not get themselves vaccinated because we get ourselves in this situation, district as a whole. So I'll be,
Not paying people,
well, because
sick
they're,
pay, not paying people.
well, because the actual COVID pay is one that's different. So right now it is, people had an opportunity to get vaccinated and they didn't. And since they didn't, because those who have been vaccinated twice and then the 2 weeks after does not have to be quarantined. So we have adults in the district that chose not to be vaccinated, and now we're in a situation to where they're being quarantined. So there are policies that are out there that say that, not that we're trying to, you can't say that you're going to fire someone, make it mandatory that they have to get vaccinated, but you can put policy in place that says, but we don't have to pay you because what you're doing is causing the situation that we are in right now.
So can I just clarify that you're talking about quarantine pay, not sick pay?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's right. Thank you. So I'll bring that next month because it is a concern that has impacted our community. And as we mentioned earlier, it's not like this is going to go away going into the fall. So we're going to bring this.
How many of our teachers have vaccinated? On-time committee?
I think we had approximately 75%. Oh, we're not sure.
I mean, we don't know because.
They have to tell us.
Yeah, there's many that got vaccinated elsewhere.
Right.
So we really, we had a great turnout, but we don't know.
Yeah, there's no fine-tuned number there.
I have a question on that.
Well, since this is,
Superintendent comments, there's no questions here.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I actually did the same thing with Ed, didn't I?
I was just gonna say, I'm just gonna,
Yes.
sorry, but I'll just send my questions. I think that would be good.
I'm sure yours is a short answer.
That's all right, I'll wait.
Okay. And then the other is, I really want to show appreciation for the community and our students and staff for making that transition this time from going to in-person to virtual. I've heard from the administrators who have said that parents and kids, even kids were like, wait, I forgot my Chromebook. I have to go back and get my Chromebook. And that transition occurred to where it was more productive with that transition, and we didn't leave kids to where they are not without the virtual learning opportunity. Just wanted to say a huge thank you for the parents and the kids who are working with that transition. And then my last one is We're trying to have events just like we would have had them pre-COVID. So there's a number of things that we're trying to do, but as we get to those events, if we're not able to hold them because of the certain positivity rates that are going, at least we try to get there. There's more events coming up. We have field days at the elementary level. We have barbecues for 8th graders or middle school. We got these events that are coming up, and we really want to take a look, and that's why it may be 2 and 3 weeks before the decision is made that we're saying, hey, we waited, we try to do what we can, but we're trying to have each one of those events. So again, it's just due to safety concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. 8.01, board comments.
I got something.
Yes, ma'am.
Kind of follows along to what Kevin just said in regards to trying to have events. I just want to make sure it's really clear to the community that the prom that PUP is putting on is not school sanctioned. I've seen a lot of stuff on social media today that no, prom is not canceled. Yes, the school sanctioned prom is canceled, and what PUP is putting on is not school sponsored. And I would really appreciate it if somebody from PUP would make sure that it was very clear that it is not school sanctioned, because I think there are a lot of kids, because I sometimes listen in on class, like when Olivia's in class, and I think there are a lot of very confused students, and God bless teachers like Mr. Driver, who sometimes use his class as a therapy session, if you will. I think that teachers like him are a blessing for many students. There was a lot of confusion. That announcement came out during the school day. Other parents put it out there, and God bless PUP for picking it up. But I just want to make it very clear that that is not a school sanctioned event. Just like homecoming was not school sanctioned and it was put on by PUP. And thank you, PUP, for picking up the slack and putting that on. The other comment was the newsletter. You had mentioned that there was a newsletter coming out, and just wanted to know and just kind of reiterate and hope that newsletter is coming out soon, because I still have yet to see a newsletter, and just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'd like to remind our community and board that on the 22nd is our first community forum for the bond. And, we'd like a great attendance in that. Come and give your input. It's very important.
What time is that?
6
o'clock?
Yep.
Thank you very
And
much.
that is virtual.
It is virtual.
It's all virtual,
Yes.
so go on to the school website to get that link. And also, I do want to thank the PUP 2021 for all their efforts. They put a huge amount of work into making sure our seniors have a good senior year and celebration for graduation night. So
absolutely
safe celebration.
Thank you, ma'am.
And all the supporters that support that.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Anyone else? All right, my turn. I'm going to add on to some dates, important dates. I'm going to add on to the PUP. May 1st is a rummage sale at Learning Zone Preschool and Childcare. Please get on the PUP Facebook page with any of your donations. You can get with Maria Ortiz, Jill Peterson, Mrs. Schwartz. There's a bunch there on the PUP, or get with me and I can, or any one of us, we can help you add on or get in touch with them. So they're looking for stuff for the rummage sale.
Clean your garages out.
Clean your garages out. As a reminder, the high school is still open after school hours. Anyone needing help, needing internet, whatever, the high school is still open. The buildings themselves are not closed down. So anybody need any help with anything, please reach out to your school, contact your school office, and we can get you set up with whatever you need, or try to help you out with whatever you need. Last but not least, with everything going on, it's not just a Penfield thing. On the whole shutdown, it's not just a Penfield thing. It's a Michigan thing. It's a Calhoun County thing. Our numbers are absolutely skyrocketed right now. With the possibility of returning, let me rephrase that. In order to offer the in-person, we got to keep these numbers down. So this is where we're asking for your guys' help. Community, family members, parents, students. I'm an assumption, but if these numbers keep going up, we're gonna be shut down. We're not gonna have a choice. So let's do our part, do whatever we gotta do, to help try to drop these numbers. We're gonna come back, we're gonna have 4 weeks left of school. So let's do our best to be able to come back and enjoy the last 4 weeks of school. And I think we all know where, going from there. Other than that, I think we have great news that we can't say yet. So look at the Penfield Schools Facebook page later this week. Today's not the day to announce it, but we got some great news coming up. So with that said, I don't see anyone else with anything. So I would like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Seconded from Tim. I thank everyone very much for your time. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys.
That was a good one.
Thank you.